Hello and welcome to your second Changemaker workshop. Today we're going to be going over a business model, really getting into the nitty-gritty of what your company, your venture looks like, and justifying kind of how you plan on making money. How do you actually make this idea a reality? So we'll be going in through what is a business model, working through the business model canvas, but then also looking at how this is an iterative approach. This isn't one thing you kind of put on paper and then it's static and is going to be like that for the rest of your business's life. This is something that's going to evolve as you better understand your customer, as you better understand the market, and you get better traction as well. So really looking first at your concept validation. We've gone over kind of what is your idea and why does it matter to you as an individual, but also how is it innovative, right? You really want to be meeting something in the world that is currently unmet, and the customer, your potential customer, probably doesn't know that they have it. So that's where the innovation really lies, is you're addressing something that hasn't been addressed yet, and you're solving a real pain point that people aren't currently working around too much. So today we're really going to look at the kind of essential questions of a business model, and for you to be able to articulate the purpose and the reasoning and kind of validation around your business as well. So the first is, do you have problem solution fit? This is what we've been talking about. This is what we're going to continue talking about, because it's really, really important to kind of fall in love with your problem first and foremost, and then enjoy the process of coming up with your solution rather than being married to a specific solution and trying to fit that into a problem. So do you have problem solution fit? Your problem being the issue you're looking at or the market opportunity, the solution being your business itself. Next question is, how do you plan on making money? You can't have impact, even if you're having a social enterprise or something like that, without being financially sustainable. So no matter what, how do you plan on making money and achieving that sense of profitability or financial sustainability? What value are you providing your customers? That's essential, right? You want people to gain something from your business, your venture. And then finally, why are you the best option? What is your competitive advantage and how are you articulating that? How does the customer receive that information? And how is that baked into kind of protecting your whole business model, right? Is making sure that you're driving that value for the customer. So what is even a business model? A business model describes the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. We'll be using the business model canvas throughout this workshop to really give you a snapshot and a way to think through what is your business model. It's flexible, you can iterate upon it, but at the end of the day, it looks short, but it takes a lot of energy to kind of think through each of these pieces and be able to articulate them in a clear and simple way. So we'll be going over each of these components step by step. If you want to kind of look over what this actually looks like, we have the Uber business model canvas here as well, so you can kind of understand and contextualize what you'll be doing. The first piece are customer segments. Who is your target customer? And when people say everyone is my target customer, you're not evolved enough. You need to be able to almost see your customer in front of you. What kind of shoes would they wear? Look at that level of specificity in order to kind of articulate who your target customer is. You may have multiple segments. You may be working with a couple different groups of people. And if that's the case, you'll have different kind of value propositions for each of them. But pick and take a moment to really think through who are your 1 to 3 customer segments. Who are those target customers who are going to be early adopters and the ones that you are really creating value for? Once you've identified who those people are, what is this is a persona, right? So your target customer becomes your persona, the person that you're able to really talk about the group of people. What is their pain point? What's the problem that they have in their life right now that you're coming in to solve for? So think of that through, maybe it's their journey of a process and you're making an intervention in that journey at some point to solve for a painful inefficiency within that journey. So what is their current pain point? And think of that for each of the customer segments that you have listed out. The next step is, when you look at that, what alternatives are they currently using? So this could be, if there's not this ends up looking like your competition slide, which we'll go over in the pitch orientation workshop as well. So you need to understand what are the current options out there to solve for this pain point already. There might not be a specific company, but people will be finding workarounds to solve for their own pain points. And the most compelling companies are the ones that really focus on a pain point that's universal to their target customer. So it's not just one person's issue, but it's a larger groups. So what are the alternatives that they're currently using? And there may be several of them. So take a moment and really think about this now. From here, you'll be able to clearly articulate what is your value proposition for each customer segment. This is talking about how are you, after looking at all this information, the target customer, their pain point, the current alternatives, this is setting you up to talk about how you are so obviously better than the rest of them because you address all of the pain points, you're better than the alternatives, and this is an opportunity for you to try and say this as simply as possible. And this will be kind of the opening line maybe for your executive summary. This is a really compelling kind of statement to be able to make is your value proposition. So take some time to really think through what that is. Why are you better than the current alternatives? And what's your kind of innovation here? And you'll want to do this for every customer segment. The next step is to look at what do you need to make your business work? What are the pieces that, without you don't even have anything, right? So this is talking about kind of the how of your business. This is the how of your business. So we're looking at the key resources. What do you need in order to create your product? Like physically create it. Is it developers? Is it access to a manufacturer of some kind? Is it having a patent on your product? What are the key partnerships that you need to have in order to make your business work? So this can be if you have a product that needs to be shipped, then the key partnerships are maybe FedEx. How do you actually get the product around? And how is this possible maybe to be more efficient without you having to do it? So then you need to rely on a partner in order to do that. So these are like the essential pieces of how your business works that may or may not influence kind of your cost structure as well. The last piece are the key activities. And this is actually what are you doing? What are the actions that you take around your business that creates that value? So what is it that you're actually doing? Are the key activity pieces. So take a few moments to think through all of these and write those down. Now we kind of put all of this together from where we've started. So we look at a customer journey map. This allows you to really identify and look at where the customer is having their pain point and where is that opportunity. So this also helps you kind of trace from the discovery of what your product is and your service to establishing that customer loyalty. How is it we use the word stickiness around this, right? So how do you keep them coming back? How do you keep the customer? So that's where that customer loyalty comes into place. And that's why it's helpful to look at the whole kind of cohesive journey that your customer goes through so that you can empathize with them every step of the way. So I have a couple different examples for you to kind of think through. The whole point of this is to build empathy and to identify where the opportunities are. This will help you understand kind of your customer journey, but also what sales channels you'll need and how your business will function. So customer journey maps show a customer's interaction with a product or service. They map out the process that a customer or persona goes through. Journey maps are used for understanding and addressing customer needs and pain points. This customer journey map outlines the persona's scenario and her expectations. So it's not only talking about each step of the process, logically, but it's also looking at where's the emotional component as well, because at the end of the day, that's really where you're looking to connect and be compelling around. It features the actions that the user takes and captures her thoughts throughout the process. So this is a really great opportunity if you have the time to do some sort of customer validation session. So you can go to maybe 10 plus potential customers and ask them, what is your journey through the process of maybe it's going to the grocery store. Maybe it's buying your first home, whatever your kind of service or product kind of relates on, ask them. So this is, these are the steps along the way. These are the emotions. And then if you're able to kind of aggregate that data and synthesize it, you'll be able to really tell a compelling story and have that validation that you'll need to deliver a really strong pitch as well. So you can either do this on your own, really trying to empathize with who that customer is, but the best practice around customer journey maps is actually using them as a tool to kind of build empathy, but gain better understanding to who your potential customers are as well. Now that you really understand who your customer is, where your value proposition lies, how you're going to do the business, and how it directly impacts your customer along their journey, the most important piece, and this is kind of going into your business model that you'll articulate in your pitch as well, what's the cost structure and your revenue streams? You really want to be able to tell the story that you fully understand, and this is where the business model comes into play too. But what's your cash flow? If you're going to charge this much and you're spending this much on kind of your key partnerships or your key activities, those pieces, how do they balance out? How long will it take you to reach a point of profitability or sustainability? And this is your opportunity to kind of look at, okay, you've got all the pieces on paper now. You understand what your business and the context in which you're operating. What are the pieces that you really need to understand now so that you don't get into trouble later on? So now that you have done the whole business model canvas, you can look at this and you can kind of either leave it in the business model context, but you'll take each component of this and plug it into different parts as you move along in your business. But the first thing that you really should understand as well as you kind of take the next step is understanding the lean startup methodology. It's about how can you keep it as lean as possible throughout the process, so spend as little money as you're trying to figure it out, and spend as little time and resources. So that's why the business model canvas is kind of part of this, is because we're not asking you to write a 40-page business plan that may or may not be relevant in 2 years, let alone 2 months with developing your business. But it's also allowing you the flexibility when you kind of think about this. The lean methodology is also around having a growth mindset. So you want to fail first and you want to fail forward. So you want to make sure that you fully understand where your customer is coming from, and you might not have the right assumptions right away. So that may be a great point to kind of learn, pivot, move on. And so that's the kind of iteration that you need to see. And we say you need to get comfortable with failure, because this whole process, you'll be getting some things right and you'll be learning a lot more along the way. And sometimes your whole process may not yield what you want it to, but what are you learning along the way and how are you iterating it around that? And this is around kind of growth through experimentation. And so what I mean by that is, how can you take the scientific model where you have a hypothesis and this is what you think is going to happen, and you run that and apply it to your business? And so we'll go into that in a few minutes, but kind of keep that in mind. How can you kind of structure those experiments to allow you to grow intelligently with your business? And then finally, that next piece that will be really helpful for you is building your MVP, your minimal viable product. How can you build it as cheaply and as efficiently as possible so that you can get your idea across and continue to get that customer validation? So if you're creating an app, you don't have to build the entire app in order to get validation. You can draw sketches of what each interface is going to look like and ask your potential customer to walk through that journey, or you can use that as part of your pitch deck without having to put in all the resources. Because if they say, when I press this button and it takes me to this next page and it makes no sense, rather than you having to kind of go back and redevelop that whole part of your app, you just know that in the future, when you actually do develop it, to make those tweaks as well. So it allows you to kind of develop without using all the resources and be smart about how you grow. This is also a cycle. So you've developed your personas, you know who that is, you know what the problem scenarios, the alternatives, you know your problem solution fit. But then you kind of go into this cycle of understanding your value proposition, the assumptions you have about your customers, the discovery of finding those customers, how do they find you, the experiments you have to test your assumptions, And then understanding, the user stories. So how are they actually interacting with what you've developed? And the prototypes or your MVP are really important around that because it gives you something to test on. And then you might be in this circle for years, but that's okay because you're learning and perfecting your product all the way through. And then when you have something that the unit economics make sense, it's you've gotten traction with some initial customers, but you also have the validation of talking to a lot of people. These businesses and these ideas can never be created in isolation. So you have to get out there, start talking to people who share either the story that you have around having a pain point, but also can address it as well. So this is your opportunity to really look at the kind of continuum around it. And then when you get to the point where you feel like you have the best thing you possibly can, you take it to scale and you're able to kind of build your customer base, and it's all about sales at that point and scaling. So when you are looking at designing your own experiment with your business, you have defined the kind of first steps when understanding your kind of customer targets or your customer segments. You've got your persona, the problem scenario they have, the alternatives that they're currently using, and then you've developed your value proposition. The next step is, what is your key hypothesis to test your value proposition? What's the clear experiment that you're going to run? It could be if your target customer rather, is a younger person who is really into fitness. Then maybe you take, okay, my hypothesis is I think I can gain, 10 customers if I use this specific type of wording and put it inside of all these fitness magazines or something along those lines. That's a really clear, small piece that you are able to test and see, and it won't take you very long, right? If you're trying to solve a problem that you think people want, the other piece could be running Facebook ads or Google ads around a landing page that you've created. So you don't have to do a lot of development, but then to be able to say, okay, understanding, okay, these are the people who are clicking on this. This is how many, this is how much activity I've gotten. So what are those measurable experiments that you can do? And then understanding very clearly what your validation criteria is. You don't want to set yourself up for failure by having metrics that make you feel good. You want to be able to clearly understand, is this working or is it not? And then go back to the drawing board and have a new experiment. And so you look at your results, you analyze them, you figure out, okay, where do I need to make a pivot? Is this working? Was I right? And then go back and do it again. And again, this is part of that cycle. So you'll be doing this a lot throughout, but it's all about gaining that validation and growth through experimentation, as we discussed earlier. The next piece for you, after you've done this and you kind of understand what's the best way to develop your business and your product, is to build out a prototype. So this can be as complex as you'd like it to be. It can also be, something that you print with a 3D printer or you laser cut, and really about how do you get that physical connection if you're developing a product and start to test how that works, or how can you kind of develop what the app is actually going to look like, and have something that you can start to iterate on at a more advanced level. So the next step for you really is to go ask people about the product that you're trying to develop, understand and build empathy with them through using a customer journey map. And then from there, run some experiments, but also develop your prototype based off of the results of your experiments that then allow you to do another level of experimentation as well, and really helps you to tell your story in a visual manner through your prototype when it comes to the pitch as well. That's all for the Changemaker workshop around business models. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and good luck.